everyone, and welcome to Module 2, which is titled Understanding How We Learn. So we're going to be talking about learning preferences and styles in this module. So the first half, we are going to talk about the RVC learning outcomes. We're also going to talk about multiple intelligences and then how we learn and learning styles. For our warm-up question today that is posted in the announcements, it says, you get a surprise day off from work and school. What are you going to do with your day? So you have a completely free day. Nobody's telling you what to do. What are you going to do with your day? So for me, I would definitely sleep in, maybe go somewhere and get some breakfast. And then I really enjoy hanging out with my dog and knitting, which I know sounds like an old lady thing, but it's like my crafty thing that I like to do. So I would sit around, watch Netflix, knit, and hang out with my dog, and that sounds like a fantastic day. All right, the RVC learning outcomes. Rock Valley College has defined the expected student learning outcomes that students will achieve after completing their education at RVC. Graduates of RVC should be able to perform at the appropriate associate degree level of learning for each of the each of the RVC student learning outcomes. So basically for these outcomes, they're saying you should be able to do this at the college level when you are done with your time at RVC. So the handout here, we are going to look at, we're also going to answer some questions. Which of the outcomes will help you complete your education? Which of the outcomes will help you in a future job? And then are there any of these outcomes that are just good life skills? So I will ask you to type these answers in the assignment part of this. I'm going to flip over to the handout so you can see what I'm talking about here. So let's get into that. Here we go. Okay, so we have the SLOs, the student learning outcomes. There are 4 different categories. Analytic reasoning. Students will form logics, judgments, or conclusions, facts or premises related to topics encountered in the classroom, workplace, and daily life. And then the bullet points go into a little bit more detail about what that looks like. Communication. Students will exchange ideas effectively in a variety of settings. Global awareness and responsibility. Students will develop the knowledge and skills required to responsibly interact with social and natural communities, both locally and globally. And then personal responsibility. Students will accept responsibility for their personal and professional wellness and development, positioning themselves for lifelong learning. So take a look at these bullet points. And read through them, take a couple minutes to do that, and then that will help you answer the questions that I have posed. Now we're going to move on and talk about different ways that we learn and different strengths that we each might have as individual learners. So this first theory, called Theory of Multiple Intelligences, does draw on our individual strengths when it comes to learning. So it says the concept of multiple intelligences is a theory proposed by a Harvard psychologist, Howard Gardner. If you take any education classes or if you're going into the education field, you will learn about Howard Gardner. So when we talk about intelligence, IQ and IQ testing may immediately come to mind, but intelligence is often defined as our intellectual potential, something that we're born with, something that can be measured, and a capacity that's difficult to change. But there's actually been some challenges to that idea. So Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences proposes that people are not born with all of the intelligence that they will ever have, that you can grow as a learner and grow in your intelligence. So this theory challenged the traditional notion that there is only one type of intelligence that only focuses on your cognitive abilities. Other views of intelligence have emerged, including Gardner's suggestion that multiple different types of intelligence may exist. So we're going to talk about what those types of intelligence are. So here we have this lovely infographic that has some graphics in the middle that show the different types of intelligences that people may have strengths in, and then the outside labels them and goes into some detail about what those are. So I'm just going to read what the types are, and then if you want to pause this and read the descriptions for like the strengths or possible occupations that you could go into if you fit into these areas, you can go ahead and do that. It's important to note as well that people can fall into multiple categories, that most people have multiple different intelligences here that they are strong in, or you might be strong in a few and then maybe have a little bit of the intelligence in the other areas. So it's not just all or none in these areas. So the first one is intrapersonal intelligence, where you have a deep understanding of your own self. So intra means, within. So you have a good understanding of yourself as a person. The second kind is linguistic intelligence, which has to do with language. Number 3, logical and mathematical intelligence. You have strength in reasoning and logical thinking. Naturalist intelligence has to do with the environment and nature. So you are sensitive to features of the natural world. You appreciate the environment. Number 5, existential intelligence. You have a deep desire to ponder questions about life, death, and ultimate realities. So that philosophical kind of type. Number 6, spatial intelligence, the ability to represent the spatial world in one's mind. So it also might be thought of as artistic or creative. Number 7, musical rhythmic intelligences, so that you are kind of naturally good at music and rhythm, or you find that to be an area that you excel in. Number 8, interpersonal intelligence, which is different than our first one, intrapersonal. So interpersonal is the ability to understand other people. So you work well with others, you understand them, where they're coming from. And then number 9, bodily kinesthetic intelligence. So you enjoy the movement of the body to solve a problem or while you're learning. It's an active maybe type of learner or person. So those are the 9 different types of intelligences that have been identified for this multiple intelligences model. And like I said before, you can be strong in multiple different categories here. So you may find a combination of these really represents who you are. This next slide talks about learning styles, which are sometimes called VARK because it stands for visual, auditory, reading, and then kinesthetic. Your learning style is more how you prefer to interact with new material when you are learning. And there has been some scientific pushback about this idea, so kind of take this as you will. Some people really relate to it, others do not, but it kind of gives you a background here of maybe how you relate to learning new information. So for a visual learner, it says visual learners understand new information best when they can see it, whatever it is. And so it shows you then some different examples of maybe how visual learners would like to see information using different colors, graphs, chart diagrams, maps, and plans. Then we have our auditory learner. So it says auditory learners understand new information best when they can hear it rather than see it. So participating in discussions, listening to stories, or chats, having guest speakers, or listening to a recording. A reading learner. If you take handwritten notes, the act of typing them can help your review. So a reading learner would like things like making lists or reading lists, taking notes and texts in all formats, and reading. So maybe more of a traditional type of learner that we might think of, when reading a textbook or taking notes. And then finally, we have a kinesthetic learner. So it says kinesthetic learners understand new information best when they can feel or do it, when they can experience the learning. So when it appeals to all of your senses, there are practical exercises, maybe role play exercises, or you're doing something hands-on. So now I'm going to go into a little bit about the differences between multiple intelligences and learning styles, since we have talked about both of those things in this lecture. One common misconception about multiple intelligences is that it means the same thing as learning styles. Instead, multiple intelligences represents different intellectual abilities. Learning styles, according to Howard Gardner, are the ways in which an individual approaches a range of tasks. They have been categorized in a number of different ways: visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, impulsive and reflective, right brain and left brain, etc. So those are different ways of categorizing learning styles. And then with the multiple intelligences, it says that everyone has all 8 or 9 types of the intelligences at varying levels of aptitude. So everybody falls into these areas. You just might be stronger in some than others. And then it says perhaps there's even more types of intelligences that are still undiscovered. And all learning experiences do not have to relate to a person's strongest area of intelligence. For example, if someone is skilled at learning new languages, it doesn't necessarily mean that they prefer to learn through lectures. Someone with high visual spatial intelligence, such as a skilled painter, may still benefit from using rhymes to remember information. The last part of our lecture will be looking at how you can take your learning styles once you know what they are and actually use that to approach your learning in a specific and intentional way. So I have 2 handouts here: types of learning styles and study tips that go with those learning styles, and then different types of note taking for your learning style. So I will go ahead and get out of the PowerPoint and show you what these look like. This is an awesome web page. So it says it's the complete study guide for every type of learner. It breaks down the different types of learners that we just talked about, your different learning styles, and then it gives you tips for study success. So it tells you, like, if you're this type of learner, this might help you. And then I love, if you scroll down, there is a video, but my favorite thing is this infographic. So the complete study guide for every type of learner. And these little icons will show you which of these methods fit with different types of learners. And so there's that little kind of code. If we scroll down, it will show you these different methods and tips and then who that will best work for. So I really like this just to give some different ideas. And even if you might not identify as that certain type of learner, you can still benefit from these different study tips. In the last site, different types of note-taking based on your learning style. Again, it breaks it down into the different types of learning styles and maybe what note-taking methods would work for your type of learning. But again, you can borrow and learn from other types of learners as well. So even if you don't necessarily identify maybe as an auditory learner, but you read these note-taking tips and you're like, oh yeah, I think I would like that, you can absolutely do that. So these are just some good ideas as well for if you need tips on how to take notes. These are good things to look at for just note taking in general. And then if you specifically want to hone in on your type of learning, you can do that.